Jussie Smollett has been given an amazing lifeline by the Illinois Supreme Court, which just reversed his conviction, not on the grounds that he did not perpetrate a fake race hoax on the city of Chicago and the nation, but on the ground that, if you remember, the original prosecutor in the case, Kim Foxx, a woke DEI promoting George Soros prosecutor, didn't want to charge him and cut a plea deal with him, a non-prosecution agreement that let him off the hook for some community service and a handshake. And he signed it. And it was only in response to the outrage over that Special Prosecutor Dan Webb was brought in, former big muckety-muck in Chicago, and he tried the case against Jussie Smollett. And Jussie's lawyers argued that this was a violation of his Fifth Amendment privileges, that it was basically trying to try him twice after the government had sworn or agreed that it would not try him, that they had already cut a deal with him. And that ultimately proved persuasive to the Illinois Supreme Court, which ruled in a 5-0 ruling. There are 7 justices, 2 abstained, 5 justices, I don't know why, but 5 justices ruled they want a reversal. And now already you've got the far left crowd on Twitter going nuts about how everyone owes him an apology. And you mark they're going to spin this into he's somehow been exonerated, when really all the court said was you can't try him when he already admitted to it and struck a non-prosecution agreement with this loser DA, Kim Foxx.
Well, I am shocked to find that there's bad governance going on in Chicago. And I feel it's terrible that a man who committed a hate crime has been set free like this. This is just a terrible thing. This is another guy. Are there any real hate crimes in America? I mean, I cannot remember the last time there was a high-profile hate crime, except against Jews, of course. But I can't remember there was the last time there was a high-profile hate crime that didn't turn out to be a fraud. So, you know, Jussie Smollett, I feel bad for the guy. I have to admit, when that show he was in, what was it called? Kingdom or something like that came out.
Empire.
I was absolutely Empire. That's what it was. I was absolutely stunned by the guy's talent. I remember sitting there going, wow, that guy can really sing. And apparently he just sang the wrong song and now his career is in shambles. But what can we say? The guy has escaped.
Is it? That's the real question.
Maybe not.
What
maybe
will they do?
Maybe he'll win an Oscar for this. You know?
Or will he be totally embraced by the left, who will pretend that this was some sort of exoneration on the merits, when that's not, in fact, at all what happened? Just reading now here from the Chicago Tribune, reminding us of exactly how this went down. Weeks after indicting him, prosecutors dropped all counts against him, noting that he forfeited his $10,000 bond and had done community service. Cook County State's Attorney Kim Foxx previously handed the case to deputies, saying she had recused herself. And the court found here that we are aware this case has generated significant public interest and that many people were dissatisfied with the resolution of the original case and believed it to be unjust. Nevertheless, what would be more unjust than the resolution of any one criminal case would be a holding from this court that the state was not bound to honor agreements upon which people have detrimentally relied. Here's what's nuts. This guy, there will be discussions about whether he got this ruling because he's black and gay, whether this is some sort of privilege right along those lines, or whether, like, would the Andrew Clavens of the world have gotten a ruling like this? Is the Illinois Supreme Court captured by this kind of thinking, or was this a just legal ruling? I'm going to have to go back and look at it to answer that myself. But remember this, Andrew. Remember what a big deal this was. He came out and made up this fake story that he'd been walking in the polar vortex. It was that time in Chicago where it was like 52 below or something crazy in Chicago. And that 2 white guys wearing MAGA hats came up out of nowhere and said something about like, F you, you gay, whatever. And just happened to be holding a noose and bleach, which they doused him with and put around his neck before beating him up and leaving him. Oh, this is MAGA country. That's what they allege. This is
that
MAGA
was my
country.
favorite.
That's what it
my
was.
favorite line, yeah.
At 2 a.m. in Chicago, he was just walking around randomly in Chicago with their noose and their bleach, hoping to see Jussie Smollett while he went out to get a Subway sandwich. Anyway, then he went on with Robin Roberts because all of the media was fawning all over him. Oh my God, this poor black gay man got attacked by the evil MAGA. And she gave him the biggest pass we've seen up until we got to Kamala Harris entering the presidential race. Watch this.
Why do you think you were targeted?
I can just assume. I mean, I come really, really hard against 45. I come really, really hard against his administration. And I don't hold my tongue.
He comes really hard.
I like the self-importance, though, the idea that people were actually paying attention to this guy who was maybe the fifth lead on that show to begin with and cared about what he thought about 45. But also, 45. You know, it is amazing. You know, it really is kind of interesting. He was attacked by two white guys who, by an absolute coincidence, just happened to be his trainers who were black and who were lost because they thought they were in Trump country in the middle of Chicago. So somehow they had lost their GPS. But it was immediately embraced and immediately pushed out there by the mainstream media, and no one ever pays a penalty. This is the part of the machine that is so fascinating. No one ever pays a penalty for getting these stories wrong. No one ever has to quit. No one ever has to apologize. No one ever has to go back and say, "Oh, wow, maybe we should have actually done some research since we're on a network with an amazing amount of investigative force." But all of that stuff disappears. And it'll be very interesting to see what the rest of his career looks like. Because you're right, of course, that the left is going to say, oh, wow, he's been exonerated when he hasn't been. But that's kind of what I'm talking about with Trump's election. They don't have the power they used to have. They don't have the power to erase what we've seen with our own eyes the way they used to be. They literally used to be able to say, we didn't exist. You know, Hunter Biden laptop, it's not a thing. It's Russian disinformation. They have lost that power. They used it to the ultimate extent in the 2016 election. And now it's kind of in the 2020 election, I'm sorry. And now it's really played out, and Trump has broken it and left it in pieces on the ground. So I don't know what's going to happen to the guy. You know, I don't really have a lot of animosity against him. I think he's an actor, who's startled that he wants to be more important than he is, or thinks he's more important than he is.
I do. He not only did he smear all of MAGA, but he cost the city of Illinois tens of thousands of dollars as they investigated this nonsense. The black police chief in Chicago just crushed him. We're looking for the soundbite right now because we had it cut back at the time, but was so angry at what this guy had done with Chicago PD, and he wanted to create a race war. I mean, it was so irresponsible and just it really tried to ignite a flame that could have caused this country to burn had he not been caught by these smart investigators. Ultimately, the two perpetrators of this alleged hate crime gave an interview to and did a reenactment for Fox Nation in like the best piece of tape ever. Here they are. They are black. They knew Jussie Smollett. They were not white MAGA hating guys. They just got convinced by Jussie Smollett to do this to him. And watch.
So we waited here for about, what, 4 minutes?
It was about 4
Roughly
minutes,
4 minutes.
but it felt like forever.
Because it was cold as balls. As we crossed the street, we said, hey, to get his attention. And that's when we started yelling the famous slurs he wanted us to yell. Hey!
Aren't you that Empire?
Hey, it's MAGA country.
Yeah.
He wanted it to look like he fought back. That was very important for him because he said, hey, don't just beat my ass, make it look like I'm fighting back and whatnot. So we did that, and then I threw him to the ground. And after I threw him to the ground, he had no bruise. I wanted it to look more real. So then I threw him to the ground. After I threw him to the ground, I used my knuckle and gave him a noogie.
I finally put the rope around his face. I did not put it around his neck. I just placed it on his face, and that's when we took off.
love that. Is
Hats
great.
off to
That
the
is a
Fox
great
Nation
piece of tape.
I gave a noogie.
I love the racist noogie. That's nothing like that noogie to really take you out. Like this is
Greatest thing to ever air on Fox Nation. All right, wait, but here is that we found the soundbite from Eddie Johnson, the police chief at the time, who was definitely not laughing. Watch.
Jussie Smollett took advantage of the pain and anger of racism to promote his career. I'm left hanging my head and asking why. Why would anyone, especially an African-American man, use the symbolism of a noose to make false accusations? How could someone look at the hatred and suffering associated with that symbol and see an opportunity to manipulate that symbol to further his own public profile? How can an individual who's been embraced by the city of Chicago turn around and slap everyone in this city in the face by making these false claims?
Pretty amazing. So that was 2019. For those of us holding our breath for the past several months, we can finally exhale. Doesn't it feel like that? Work can finally be done on the major issues this country is facing, and it will be. One of the most significant, our national debt. The fact is our nation is broke, and that debt is a house of cards that can't be quickly dismantled. So the strategy remains the same. You might want to diversify your savings. This is why I want to tell you about Birch Gold. So many things are out of our control and out of our president's control, so it can be really important to have a safe haven for your savings. Birch Gold Group can help you convert an IRA or 401k into an IRA in physical gold. And the best news is it doesn't cost you 1 cent out of pocket. Text MK to 989898 now to get your free info kit. Plus, right now through Black Friday, you're going to receive a free 1-ounce silver eagle for every $5,000 purchased. Protect your savings with Birch Gold. Text MK to 989898 and claim your eligibility for free silver today. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.